Fragments of silicon. Thankfully, they're heat-proof.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. If you're hearing any background noise right now, the short version is I am currently keeping an eye on my youngest nephew.
Me?
Yes, yes, you. Like he's right over there. So, um, there's going to be some extraneous noise and conversation going on because, well, I have to watch him until until my brother gets back and picks him up. You know, he had a thing he wanted to do with his eldest kid, and the movie ran long, so that's why the situation here is what it is currently. Like that aside, joining me as always are Petty and Galix. Right, let us get us to the news. Petty, you start us off this week since you have more pool stuff to gripe about.
Well. Monday morning, we woke up. Well, Sunday night, I cleaned out the pool. Thought everything was fine, hunky dory. Monday morning, we woke up. The pool was leaking. I thought no big deal. I'll call the installer and have them come out and look at it. They said, "Oh, we'll have somebody out by end of business." I thought, cool. I called to make sure, like around 4:30, and they said, "Oh, we'll have somebody out tomorrow. Sorry." Nothing on Tuesday. So I called today, and I was a little cross. They now no longer want to do any work with us.
Uh-oh.
Keep in mind, we paid $8,000 for this pool. We've had it a year. I am pretty sure the leak is caused by them not leveling it properly and its installer error. So,
can you prove that?
Possibly. We have another technician from a separate company coming Tuesday. You know, if they can be like, yeah, no, this is installer mess up, then we may be looking into, depending on what repairs cost, we may be looking into taking them to court.
Wonderful.
You know, obviously, if it's something that's just like, you know, $120, patch the liner, and it's good to go, whatever, we're just not going to use that other company anymore. If it's, you know, we need to redo the entire pool and it's going to cost us $5,000, lawyers are getting called. Because that's not right. So that's been aggravating. Because I was the one who suggested using this pool company because they got decent recommendation from one of the local pool suppliers. And until we paid off the pool, they were perfectly fine and amicable. It started being crappy the end of later last summer. And then, just trying to get them to come out and fix their mistake is pulling teeth. So, it sucks because, you know, me and my sister use the pool to help with working out because our disabilities make, you know, regular, like going to a gym very hard. So that's frustrating. As far as other stuff, I thought our modem died Saturday. Turns out we have a uninterruptible power supply. I guess one of the cats sat on the buttons and turned the output voltage too low to keep the modem on.
Yeah, when we had cats, I ended up putting a basket upside down over my uninterruptible power supply, so they couldn't do that.
Well, normally it takes a long press and like 3 short presses to make that happen. So
Cats
usually
will find a
Cats
way.
are perfectly capable of doing a long press.
I am aware, but usually they hadn't done this in like the 2 years we've had it. And I don't think, because it makes noise when you adjust the settings, so I'm pretty sure they're not going to try it again because it probably scared the hell out of them. So hopefully that's not something that happens again. Or if it does, then I know how to fix it this time. It's not a hard fix. It was just stressful because the internet company is only open Monday through Friday. So we wouldn't have been able to get it serviced or replaced until Monday if it broke. So luckily it was just one of the kitties thought that the uninterruptible power supply nook it sits in was a nice place to lay at. And turns out no, it's not. This weekend is my father's birthday. We were gonna go uh we were gonna see about going fishing, but apparently the family friend that we were gonna go fishing with, they have to see about getting trees trimmed on their property because one is precariously perched to fall on their house. So it needs to be either removed or cut back in a way that it will fall harmlessly.
Yeah, that's usually what you want to have happen, not have
Yeah,
the tree fall on the house.
yeah. Also, apparently, she's also the friend who works with animals a lot, and she found a pregnant female kitten or pregnant female cat, and the cat is very close to giving birth. So I may have more options of cats to get from her. I already told my sister no, we can't have all of them because she still also has the other 2 cats that the mother died to a dog, and they were left in a stump on her property. So she has those 2, and then however many kitties are in this litter this mama cat has, and I guess also as many as survive because that's something that can happen. So who knows? I might be getting a cat. Well, okay, I am going to be getting a cat, but it really depends on, which one wants to be mine. And then I guess the only other thing I have that's really video game related is I finally have a Ethernet cable hooked up to the TV in the front room. So my Raspberry Pi and Xbox One are now on wired Ethernet. So if I want to remote play my Xbox, I can now do that instead of trying to bring it in here for show footage. And like
Hooray.
with the Pi, I can now comfortably play games in the front room where the air conditioning is without any choppiness or dropped frames. So, hooray for the progress of technology. And also, Saturday, I hope to be able to go to the Digimon BT22 pre-release event. But I guess we'll see on that. Because, life.
Right.
But yeah, I guess that's it from me.
Well, Gulix, that means it's your go.
Let's see. It's hot again here. Which it's summer, so that's not expected. Uh, Not unexpected. My sister and her baby are up visiting for the week, so that's nice. I'm taking a couple of days off at the end of the week, so I can try and spend time with them. And also, I believe we are also having the Digimon pre-release thing this weekend, so hopefully I'll be able to go to that if that is indeed correct.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I think we've been having 22 is also some places have been reporting not getting their shipments.
That'll also matter.
That's partly why I'm iffy on if we're doing the pre-release this weekend, because they're not sure if they're getting their shipment in time yet or not.
Mm-hmm. So there's that. What else? Not much. I think Donkey Kong Bonanza comes out this week, so
Like 2 days.
yeah, so that'll be fun to try out. Um, and they announced a new Digimon Premium Bandai thing today they haven't announced the English version yet, and Premium Bandai's English website is down until like I think the end of the week. So
Something like that. I've heard rumor it's going to be like
they're
4,500 yen.
they're doing so like 30 to $50.
Something like that.
It's not too unreasonable, depending on how many copies of what is in there.
I've heard 2 each.
That's what they usually do, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah. Which, I mean, if
Anyway,
that's the case, looking at Mirai,
of,
more than worth.
Yeah, it has a couple of useful cards that are otherwise hard to get or expensive to get because they were secrets. So
Not only secrets, but one of them is from a short printed set.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think that's about all I got today. The other main thing is the story I've been working on writing. I've written myself into a position where I need to choreograph a complicated fight scene, and it's being a pain. So I'm probably going to try and outline it first, which is not usually how I do things.
Well, first time for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that's all you got, I guess
That
it's
is
my
all I got.
All right. Let's see. I guess now, outside of keeping an eye on children here, the bathroom repair situation continues to drag on. As it was supposed to be finished up today, but as it turns out, the flooring under the cabinet needs to be replaced.
Ooh.
And it's really a matter of how much that's going to cost, because there's a certain amount that's willing to be spent, and the price quoted with the current handyman was above that. So there will be some feelers extended to a few other places, including, but it's like if things don't shape up there, then just steal that, and gonna have to install some shelves elsewhere in order to store the stuff that's supposed to go under there. So that's been fun. Oh wait, no, the other thing, tedious.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Still going through the advanced collection. I'm on Aria of Sorrow now. Like, still in the early sections of that, since I just picked it up, just finished off Harmony of Dissonance, so not a whole lot to say there. Other than I'm glad my eyes have stopped bleeding. like look, you forget how garish Harmony of Dissonance is until you start playing through it again.
Mm.
Ugh.
Mhm.
Anyway, more on that later.
I guess one real quick thing. We seem to be starting to get thunderstorms rolling in, so if the stream goes off air, I more than likely lost power.
Duly
Hooray.
noted. A lot of sarcasm this week.
It's either sarcasm or violent screaming. One of those is much more interesting to the viewers.
Right. Plus, non-detrimental to their hearing.
Yes.
Anyway, I think that's about it from my neck of the woods. So, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Adam Henderson of Adjective Noun Studios.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing tonight?
Good. It's hot.
Mood.
Yeah, I'm relatable. Like, right. So putting the weather aside, how we like to get started here is we like to get to know the people behind the game studio and all that business. And we do this by asking this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Personally, I've been playing games pretty much as long as I can remember. Me and my sister grew up playing games. We used to make up our own games as well, which is, I guess, what got me interested in like game development side of things. We used to just take paper and like rip it up and make like little levels in our basement. And then I guess that eventually turned into making actual video games from there. And like professionally, I went to school for game development. So is sort of what I chose to do as a career, but I didn't initially plan on running my own studio. So like Adjective Noun is 2 people most of the time, and we started it in school. Technically, it was COVID times, so school was kind of like a non-thing when we started it. But it was literally, we were in our final year, COVID hit, and we had like a month of school left. So we basically got a pass in all of our courses, and we were just like, well, we'll just start the company right away. And then, yeah, that's sort of how I got started in the industry.
So, from what I'm gathering here, your entire video game development career has been at Adjective Now.
I've worked at a couple other places, just sort of like when we were just starting out and it wasn't paying the bills, right? Worked at some other studios, did contract work, things like that. But now I'm full-time at Adjective Now.
Okay, and it's good to know. I suppose, are you a co-founder of Adjective Now, or is that a place you ended up working at?
I'm co-founder, yeah.
Okay. Makes sense, then. Right, so going through your gamography, I'm assuming that the first projects were these CBC Kids game.
Those are actually our most recent projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't sure the order here. So I guess we'll start with The Fisherman in the Sea.
Yeah. So yeah, that was our first game. It's like it's 2D adventure game, very heavily story focused. I'm a pretty narrative guy, so I do all of the narrative and sort of creative stuff for our games, and then my co-founder does all of the technical, like programming development side of things. So yeah, Fisherman was our first project where we were both very new to the industry, and we overscoped everything about the project. So we were very excited to just get started and like start making something.
I'm pretty sure if we had $1 every time somebody overscoped their project, we would be able to mortgage half a state.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage for game developers for sure.
Oh yes. I suppose the question that beckons is how much overscoping did you do here?
So there was 3 of us working on it at the time. And the game is set up very similar to like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. So it's like a 9x9 sea, so 81 unique islands that are explorable and have quests related to them and NPCs. There's like 26 different types of catchable fish. It's a fishing adventure game. We originally had plans for like kind of Legend of Zelda-esque dungeons as well. So like there were going to be these temples where there was like puzzles and you had to like solve all of these complex things. None of that ended up making into the game. We ended up going in more of a narrative direction. Everything I wanted to get into the game ended up getting into there. Some of it took an extra year after release. So we initially released it and then on mobile, and then we ported it over to Steam. And when we were porting it over to Steam, I went in and I snuck in all of the things I wished that were in there in the original release. So it's sort of a remaster, but not really. But we finished it in 14 months. This was during COVID times, so we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do anything. So it was literally just wake up, work on game, go eat food, and go back to bed, and then repeat the next day. I don't know how I did it because I could not have done that now. But yeah, overscoped quite a bit.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Thankfully, some permeance of rationality took hold. You know, like
Yeah.
as in, as in you didn't add all the Legend of Zelda dungeons, like like making a full-on Wind Waker game with 3 people. Sounds
Yeah.
It sounds arduous to my ears. But putting that aside, yeah, the time frame quoted faster than usual. I'm going to chalk that up to COVID times because usually when this kind of thing happens, it takes around 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's worth asking, what is the narrative of the fisherman in the sea?
So you play the titular fisherman, who is this old man, and is basically the only person that sails, other than pirates. So you start off the game, and there are these settlers on these different islands. The entire world has sort of sunk, so all that's left are these scattered islands. And the fisherman's backstory is a little bit of a mystery, but he is one of the only people willing to actually sail around. There's a few other characters that you meet who are also doing it, but everyone is sort of afraid of the seas. There's violent storms. There's this mysterious, like, giant hurricane at the center of it. There's pirates sailing around. And you go from island to island, and you sort of help people with their problems, and along the way sort of encourage them to take to the seas. So the more you explore, the more you help people, the more people travel around. They meet people from other islands, they reconnect with people from the past, and you also begin to discover how the world got to the way that it is, what caused this massive flood that sunk pretty much everything else. And then you do a lot of fishing along the way.
And is the fishing a full-on mini game or sub game?
Yeah, it's sort of a mini game. If you've ever played those games where it's kind of 2D and you drop the hook down, you have to like dodge around obstacles until you like catch the fish that you're looking at. It's like that, but like you get upgrades for it. So like you can upgrade your hook and your fishing line, and it has some. The game has real time tracking, so depending on the time of day, there are certain fish out and not out, kind of like Animal Crossing, as well as the weather. So that's probably one of the things that I refused to pull back on in terms of scope. Was we had a very complex weather system where there was like independent like moisture and wind ratios that would like dynamically combine into certain types of storms that would influence like how fast you could go on your boat, the amount of like tornadoes that you run into, and what types of fish spawn. So it's a pretty in-depth like mini game within the game itself.
I'd imagine, especially since I'm going to wager that you built that system from scratch instead of, say, importing telemetry from, say, Google or the Weather Channel, something like that.
Yeah. So it was built from scratch. It's loosely based on like the area of the sea you're in. So like the Northern Sea is more windy, so there's more windstorms up there. The Southern Sea is calmer, but it's wetter. So like when there's a storm, it's usually rain rather than wind. And like those all sort of combine to like localize the regions and give them their own unique weather effects.
Good. How dire does it get weather-wise?
It's
Like,
not.
do you have to deal with full-on hurricanes?
Yeah, so there is sort of the deep sea that's in the very center of the map, and if you sail into there early game before you sort of done stuff, there is a hurricane that's always at the center of there, and if you get close to it, you get kind of sucked into it, and then you get spat back out in a random part of the sea. But outside of that, there's like tornadoes that if you hit, you also kind of just get like thrown around the map to a new location, which can pop up. So like if there's a monsoon in the local sea that is generated, there'll be a lot of tornadoes around, and it makes sailing a little more difficult. But there's also stronger winds, so you can like wind boost off of like a monsoon to like quickly get out of there, and stuff like that. But the weather can get pretty intense, especially if you're in like the deep sea or like the northern seas, where the weather is meant to be sort of like a harder difficulty in terms of navigation.
Makes sense. Though, from what I'm gathering here, the penalties for harsh weather sound on the light side of things. Like, there's no shipwrecked, there's no damage, there's no death kind of mechanic here.
Yeah, it is a pretty chill, kind of laid back game. The highest intensity moments are when you're sailing around, either when you encounter some of that violent weather, or like a pirate that is out on the open seas. So you can get sunk if you crash into an island, or if you get shot down by a pirate and you show back up at whatever the last port you left was.
Okay. Once again, I'm not too surprised, given that you said the focus here was narrative and not, say, commerce or survival, or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
Like, though, going back to the fishing minigame, what is the purpose of fishing? As in, like, is there any in-game benefit to engage in fishing?
Yeah, so primarily a lot of the quests require you to get people fish, for a wide variety of reasons. There is one of the very first quests you do is there are these two brothers who are arguing about which is the best fish, whether it's the salty gar or the butterfly fish, and you need to go out and catch specimens of each to show them to them, so that they can finally settle like this feud between them. So that is kind of one of the main drivers. Is people will ask you for a wide variety of fish. The other thing is when you catch fish, you can sell them, and then you can upgrade your boat and your fishing line as you go. So like you catch enough fish, and then you can get a boat that's a little bit faster, or can take another hit from a pirate, stuff like that. Then the last reason is there are things other than fish when you fish. So there's treasure scattered at the bottom of the sea that you can find as well. Which involves you dodging all of the fish to get down to like the treasure chest at the bottom of the sea, and then haul it back up. And there's also these non-fish creatures that are in the sea that have to do with why the flood happened, and this one quest line around like these hidden temples that are not Legend of Zelda temples. They're a lot toned down from that, but there's still kind of puzzles into how you get into them, which sort of tell the story of what happened before the flood and how it happened.
Okay. I said I hesitate to use that's good, but that is interesting to know nonetheless, because how one would feel about the efficacy of the mini game. I think is going to come down to the individual.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so I think you mentioned that you initially released this for mobile devices, which is a curious choice given the genre and the nature of the game. Like, this is a narrative-heavy adventure game, and you're releasing it in the land of Candy Crushes and Clash of Clans. Was there a particular reason why you wanted to tackle the iOS and Android first?
Yeah, when we initially started the studio, we had this kind of grand notion that we were going to make like premium purchase mobile games that were comparable to what you would find on Steam. Right, so it would be a mobile game, but it would be not never ending. It would be like a game you play on your computer, one time purchase, no microtransactions, no like loot boxes or ads or anything like that. So that's what we decided to do with our first two projects, is make mobile games that felt like the sorts of games you would play on any other platform. It was interesting. It led to a lot of very like difficult restrictions that you wouldn't run into on a PC, obviously, like performance wise, as well as just like screen resolution, like that sort of things. How you handle that on a mobile device versus not, touch controls, things like that. I would not recommend the first project that you do as a studio be a mobile game trying to encapsulate a full like PC game experience, because it would have been way easier to just make it for PC and leave it at that. But we were just starting out. We were full of ambition and drive, so we did it. Yep.
I will give you that. Like usually when we have people who develop something for mobile, it's either like free to play or it's small game, something that on the way to something bigger, or it's like if somebody's developing some premium mobile, that's going to be like for the Netflix or Apple Arcade.
Yep.
Mainly because, to be frank, that model doesn't really work on mobile. Not in this day and age.
No, certainly not. We were definitely like, we were handicapping ourselves for sure, starting out, like intentionally to some point to try and like prove a point that this sort of game can do well on mobile platforms.
Interesting. And I suppose, well, the natural question that arises is, how well did the Fisherman in the Sea do on mobile?
It didn't flop terribly. We had like a decent release at launch, but even compared to that, when we released it like 2 years later on Steam, just like releasing it on Steam first couple days was better than like the full 3 years of it being on mobile.
Once again, I am not too surprised at that result. Like, though that also makes for a natural segue to the Steam version, because you mentioned in the process of bringing it to that platform, you put in all of the elements that you wished you had put in initially. So, what's new in the Steam version?
So there's a couple of quests that we had to cut from the original. There's like like a pirate, almost like coup, where there's like this crew that's been scattered onto a bunch of islands because they went against their captain. You sort of collect them and get them back together and go hunt for some pirate treasure. Was one of the quests we wanted to do originally, but we couldn't. There's animals, so that was one of the things we had to cut. So originally it was there were only people and fish basically, but now there's like really just sort of like nice atmospheric stuff. There's like birds and cats and dogs that you can encounter, and you can actually recruit one of the cats by feeding it enough fish, and then it hangs out on your boat when you're docked, and you can just kind of see them chilling. Um, Kind of minor things like that. I'm trying to think of what else we added. I know there was 2 quests. I can't remember what the second one is. The first one is the pirate one. And then, yeah, there were just some nice quality of life things. So in the original, it was played on a phone. When it was ported over to PC, the resolution expanded, which led to interesting porting moments where you expand the resolution and there's just like empty void now when you're walking around in the levels, because we had never intended for the resolution to be the size you would get on a full screen. So improving those things and adding like faster navigation. There's a couple of like quick select options that are like quality of life things that people had asked us for after the initial release and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that does make sense since you are readjusting. Um, a- and I assume that the iOS/Android, they're universal apps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. So did you backport these additions to the original versions, or are they Steam exclusive, so to speak?
Yeah, we backported them as well. So the mobile versions have all of those updates in it as well.
Okay. Once again, that is logical because, well, otherwise I'd imagine you would have a lot of angry letters.
Yeah.
Like, that being said, what has been the reception to the Fisherman and the Sea?
Pretty good. The people who did play it, which is not like a crazy amount, generally enjoyed it. I have a friend whose kid played it, and like when it initially came out, which was like 4 years ago, and occasionally when I see him, he'll be like, "Yeah, my son still plays your game." Which, like, I wouldn't play the game for 4 years, but apparently his kid is just like likes sailing around and walking on the islands and doing whatever. Which sure, but yeah, I mean, when it initially came out, the launch was a little rough. It would crash on like iOS or whatever, because we'd never done it before. So once we had approved all of that, we got generally positive feedback from people.
It could have been better, could have been worse. Yeah.
Yep.
But it sounds like you got through things well enough. Like, so I suppose it's worth asking, as we do like asking this question as well. If you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
Start with a smaller scope, because it definitely hurt us. That we for a good long while were like, yeah, we're gonna get everything in until we knew we couldn't, which was like pretty deep.
Meanwhile, reality is like, oh, you sweet summer child.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like cutting that earlier would have just let us fine tune the actual experiences that got in them to be better. So like seeing that, which like hindsight is 2020, but seeing that earlier and then like cutting that off at the roots and being like, let's focus on the core thing that's important here, which is like sailing, fishing, and the narrative, and let's just do that and do that well, rather than spreading ourselves so thinly on a whole bunch of like varieties of things that we wanted to get in.
once again, that figures. I mean, that's not to put too fine a point on it, the regrets of a lot of game developers that grace our shorts.
Yep.
So, well. Lessons learned are still lessons. Anyway, so for your next project, I did mention it a bit before, but it is something rather drastic. There are actually two projects, two games, but they're both web games for the CBC. For those who don't know, that's the Canadian Broadcast Corporation. And I'll be honest, I didn't think that these kind of games got made anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely a pivot. So, outside of working at Adjective Noun Studios, I'd worked at another company called Falling Squirrel, and they made a game called The Veil: Shadow of the Crown, which is an auditory-only game. So it doesn't have any visuals or anything like that. And it was pretty successful. It got nominated for Game of the Year in accessibility. And basically, one of the developers of that, he's an audio only sort of like game developer, and the CBC wanted to make games for the blind. So we got brought in basically to do the development work on that, and we've been doing that for like the past 2 years. So CBC they have a whole website of like web games, which I was surprised to learn that existed as well. And they wanted to make accessible games for that platform. So we've done 2 projects for them, both of which are fully blind accessible, so you can play them without any visuals at all. The first one was not deaf accessible, which was sort of one of the criticisms of it. And then the second one is both blind and deaf accessible, so you can play it without any visuals, and you can also play it without any audio. So sort of as long as you don't have a motor disability, you can play the game, which is sort of the target for those projects.
And which is which?
So Echo Hunter was the first project we did. It's sort of like almost like a endless runner, like Subway Surfers sort of game where you play as a bat, and you have to catch insects and dodge trees, and you can hear the trees and the insects coming based on if they're on like your left or right channel in your headphones. And then the second game is Fisher's Meadow, which is a fishing game, sort of a theme. But it is more like kind of exploration, narrative focused. You explore this meadow and you have to catch fish for your sick raccoon friend.
And it took you 2 years to come up with both these games?
Yeah, so we did Echo Hunter. It's like I think it was like a 6-month development time. So we're sort of, we make these games when we're not making our own games. So we're working on a new in-house project right now, which is actually bringing one of our old games to Steam. And then so we'll work on this for like half the year, work on that for the other half of the year. Fisher's Meadow was a little bit longer. I think it was like 7 months of development time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I guess this is a good as segue as any to that other project, which I believe is Hotel Hermes.
Yes.
Okay, so for the uninitiated, what is Hotel Hermes?
So in Hotel Hermes, you play as a mailroom operator at Hotel Hermes, and it is your job to make sure letters go to where they're supposed to go. So you sit in the mailroom, letters come down the pipes, and you have to figure out what room they're supposed to go to. There's this sort of archaic mail delivery system where you have to sort of determine like the room code and the floor code, and then you send it up a pipe and it gets carted off to the room. It's also a pretty narrative heavy experience, so you find out pretty quickly that you will get letters that don't have proper documentation on them, so you have to read the letters and then sort of figure out where they're supposed to go. And during that, you sort of learn about who is at the hotel, and you can make choices on who you send what letters to. So like one of the opportunities is there's like this guy who's trying to make a movie, and there's this actress who is looking for her first role, and they don't know each other, but you'll get a letter from one of them that is to like send out basically like a casting call to these certain rooms, and you can choose to also send it to this actress, which is not one of the rooms requested. And then if you do that, it starts this whole plot line of like the two of them, connecting and making this movie together and stuff like that. So you're sort of solving these puzzles and making narrative choices along the way.
Okay. And how are these puzzles constructed? Like, what kind of puzzles are you engaging in here?
So the primary puzzle is you will get a letter, and it will sort of tell you where that letter is supposed to go. And then you have to determine the proper room code and the proper floor symbol for it. So those are sort of the bread and butter of like just sort of the basics that you're doing. Most letters will come in, and that will be plainly stated for you. So it'll be like, floor 6, room 11. You'll look at you'll type in 11, and you'll look at what floor 6 is symbol wise. So like each of the floors fit into like these certain symbols. But you'll also occasionally get letters where it doesn't have a floor, but it has like the name of the person it's supposed to be going to. So you'll have to go through like the hotel like guest list, and then look in room 11 for each floor. Is this person staying there? And then use that to determine where it's going. And as things go on, there's like secret codes that you have to decipher that will come through the letters. There's like jigsaw puzzles where there's like torn up letters. You eventually have to also start delivering packages. And there's also like one-off events. So you'll get like a performance review where like if you make any mistakes during that day, you'll get like an angry letter from your bosses. There's like an election that happens, and you can rig it if you want. So you can open all of the votes that come through, and you can change the results that's in there. And depending on what you do, it either makes your job a lot harder because you end up like electing like a 1984 like Big Brother sort of archetype, and then you have to check letters for dissonant words and like dissent as the story progresses, or you can just like elect one of the other two people and life continues as normal. So there's kind of a variety of different one-off puzzles and repeated ones throughout the game.
And is there any sort of continuity between this and your first work?
They're not connected. There's references to the first one throughout. Like one of the rooms has a poster of like the fisherman in it, and there's some like references and some of like the sort of spam letters, like just the ones that are generated in each day for like the non-story puzzles towards it as well. But they're not in the same universe or anything.
Interesting, but not unexpected, given the radical shift in, at the very least, game design here.
Yeah, they're definitely two very different games. One is like a sort of adventure fishing game, and the other is like pretty much pure narrative puzzle solving, very like Paper Please-esque in terms of how it plays. Yeah, we're very much of the mindset that like we kind of want to make games that are interesting for us to make. So we've never like made the same game a second time, or even like the same sort of game concept, like a new fresh coat of paint.
And how long have you been working on Hotel Hermes here?
So Hotel Hermes released in 2023 on mobile. And we originally weren't going to port it because it kind of works pretty well on mobile, because it's mostly like you're just kind of like dragging letters around the screen. But yeah, after we ported Fisherman over, we decided to also do Hotel Hermes, which has been a little bit more work because it was more confined to like it was only playable in portrait on your phone, and it was sort of built and intended in that way. So there's been more work in porting it to be landscape, is what you would do on a computer. So yeah.
I see. And I suppose, are you just straight porting it this time, or are you doing, for lack of a better term, another director's cut?
Yeah, it was better scoped. So we did cut a few things from it, but it wasn't anything where I was like, cutting it made the game better. It's not like cutting it was like we didn't have enough time to put it in. So other than I think there's a few more options in terms of like font rendering and font sizes, because on a phone it's pretty consistent. But like if you have a larger monitor, like you may need to increase font sizes, which is you're doing a lot of reading in the game, so like making that more comfortable. But yeah, other than that, it is pretty much a direct port.
Okay. Yeah. So at the very least, the experience has been retained.
Yeah, we learned our lesson.
Hey, I mean, it's better than not learning your lesson and repeating the same mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah. And how far along is the porting process at this point?
We're pretty much done. We're in like the testing phase right now. So it's gonna be coming out in November, on the day it was originally released, just like a few years later. So we're at the stage where it's really just like playing it, getting people to play it, see if there's any bugs or issues from porting it over.
Okay. Okay. And how well did Hotel Hermes did on its mobile platforms?
I did much better than Fisherman. I think it was a game that was more suited for the mobile platform. Um, it got nominated at the Canadian Game Awards for Best Indie Mobile Game, which definitely helped get it out there. It also, when we initially got the email for that, we thought it was spam, because we were like, there's no way that's happening. And then someone else messaged us and was like, oh, congrats on the nomination. We're like, wait, that's real? We should actually read that email and accept the nomination and stuff like that. So it did much better than Fisherman.
Progress is progress.
Yeah.
Like, just a couple more questions from my end. Let's see. Do you have any plans to work on the consoles? Like any plans to bring your games to, say, like the Nintendo Switch?
For Fisherman and Hotel Hermes, probably not. Mostly because both me and my business partner, I hate opening those games up and looking at them. Since there's stuff in there from like 3 or 4 years ago that we're just like, ooh, did I do that really? But we're all yeah. We're in like pre-production for our next original game, and we are hoping that is going to be like a full platform release, so mobile, Steam, and consoles all at the same time.
Okay. That's going to be a bit more work in its own right, but depending on what like the engine you're using, it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Yeah, we use
And
Unity, so it's pretty easy to do multi-builds from that.
Yep. And this was my final question is, can you tell us anything about Project 3 at this point?
Yeah, high concept. It is a sci-fi puzzle game where you control time to sort of solve these combat scenarios. So you will like walk into a room and there'll be like 2 thugs about to shoot you, and then you will pause time and you will have like, let's say, 5 move actions, 2 shoot actions, and like a dodge. And you have to figure out the sequence in which you want to play those actions in order to kill the 2 thugs or get out of the room or whatever.
Puzzle combat.
Yeah.
Like, kind of reminds me of Super Hot.
Yeah, definitely like similar vibes where like time only moves while you're moving, except you're sort of playing out all of your moves and then seeing how it executes. In kind of a similar way to like Baba is you in terms of like the way you move around the map and can like quickly reverse actions if you don't like the way they're happening. So you may like walk forward 3 times, get shot, and then you can just quickly like rewind that and be like, okay, I'm gonna step to the side instead of getting hit by the bullet on your next take.
But I'm intrigued. You know, may have to have you back on the program when that's further along in development, and we can talk about it more in depth.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're very early stages, like basically writing a time engine to like track what everything is doing and where things are being placed to be able to like rewind your actions and then fast forward them and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Right. So I suppose I've run through my gamut of questions. I'll turn it over to my colleagues here to see if they have anything further for you.
I think all mine have been asked.
Yes, I am also satisfied.
All right then. Well, Adam, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today. It's been a very, very enlightening conversation. Um, you know, we certainly wish you luck in bringing Hotel Hermes to Steam and on the continued development of, we'll call it Game 3 for now.
Yep.
Like, so, and also good luck to your continued work with the CBC. You know, accessibility games are a very important thing, and you know, very underutilized. So it's always good to hear when people are working in that sphere. Like, anyway, right. So the game, I guess, the game is Hotel Hermes. It's out now on mobile. It is coming out in November on Steam. How much is it running for on iOS and Android?
I believe it is. It might be different because this is Canadian numbers. So it's $4.99 Canadian. I don't know what that translates to in America, other than it's less than that.
Yeah, probably like $2.99 or something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. So I either go pick it up on mobile or go wishlist it on Steam. Petty, play us to the next segment. All right. So welcome to the topic of discussion. So this week we are talking about Castlevania: Circle of the Moon. No prizes awarded for guessing why I'm wanting to talk about this. Like, anyway, so turns out this is the subject of a heated debate among the staff.
A bit.
Yeah. In that, apparently my colleague here thinks that Harmony of Dissonance is the worst Castlevania game. I am of the opinion that no, Harmony of Dissonance is worse. But we can get that.
Well, to clarify, I'm saying the worst of the Game Boy Advance Metroidvanias.
Right.
Which is partly because it's not an EGA game, and it shows because of the differences in mechanics. Give me 1 second, I'm going to turn my air conditioner off in case you can hear the background noise.
I was wondering what that was. Like, and that is true to a, you know, certainly in the reference that, yeah, it's not an Egavania. In fact, it's from the same creative team that gave us the N64 Castlevanias. I don't remember exactly how much staff is, you know, worked on that versus the Circle of the Moon game, but I do know that the project was directed by Koji. Like, I'm trying to remember his last name here. And there's another Koji here, but he's like he would also go on to be the map designer on Portrait of Ruin. Um, I know he worked on at least that. I want to say he was also the map designer on Order of Ecclesia, but I'm going to have to look that up. So, live research and all that.
So yeah, this was, I think, the first non-strictly linear Castlevania since Symphony of the Night. Not that there had been a ton of other ones, right?
That'd be correct, but if only by virtue of the fact that this is the first 2D Castlevania since Symphony of the Night. Because it goes Symphony of the Night, then we get the two Castle. I know we call them the 2 N64 Castlevania games, but really it's
one and a half.
Yeah, it's like the thing about Legacy of Darkness is that's actually the full version of that game.
Most of the new stuff in Legacy of Darkness was literally stuff that had been planned to be in Castlevania 64 and didn't make it.
Right.
That said, I think Legacy of Darkness is also missing some stuff from 64, so it's not perfect either, but...
Right, but more or less had that come out in at least the Xbox 360 area, and later on it would have been a DLC, up to a content patch.
So yeah, because of that, this is the second what you might call Metroidvania.
Yeah.
Which at the time meant Castlevania game that has Metroid-like non-linear stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, the name of the guy who directed, co-produced, and designed this game is Koji Hori.
Right. That rings a bell.
Yeah. Once again, this would not be his last rodeo on Castlevania games.
So yeah, this game does have many features that Symphony of the Night had. Who did we just lose? Guest? Yes.
Yeah.
It has a nonlinear progression where you need to get new traversal abilities, usually by beating bosses, to be able to progress. And when you do, in addition to the way forward not usually being right by where you got the thing, it also opens up other paths in various parts of the castle. It does also feature you level up by fighting bosses and also gain health and magic upgrades by finding health and magic and heart, I think, or health and heart, whatever. Upgrade items, and you get equipment that you can use to increase your stats. Since you're playing as not a Belmont, but a stand-in for the Belmonts,
right.
You only play as a whip, so you don't have alternate weapons.
I'm like, well, that's not true. You do get the sub weapons.
You get but you don't have like Alucard can equip swords and stuff.
Well, that's only been the, let's say, the lineage of Dracula who can do that in Castlevania.
Jonathan Morris. This far we're back to the protagonist being someone who uses a whip and sub weapons. Although, because of the game's magic system, you can kind of turn your whip into a sword or whatever anyway.
Right. Like, I'm trying to remember what card it was, but there's an entire card dedicated to swords.
Yeah, it just turns your thing into what in most of the following games would call a broadsword type, I believe. The one with the overhand swing. But yeah, in those ways, it's similar. What it doesn't have the biggest issue I have with this game is that I guess what you'd call the RPG mechanics are kind of not well integrated. Everything related to items and stuff is random drops. There is, I believe, no shop at all.
No, there isn't.
And no money. So you only get healing items by random drops from enemies. You only get equipment at all by random drops from enemies. You're supposed to only get access to the game's magic system by random drops from enemies, but we lucked out and there's a fucking glitch that lets you use the magic freely whenever you want.
Yeah. So there is also a card combination that allows you to recharge your health. Like, but that is kind of limited by context.
And you do need at least two. Yeah, you do need at least 2 card drops to be able to actually use the card system too, because you need an element card and a planet card.
Well, that's not a big problem.
Aside from the cheat.
Like, that's not a problem at its base, because there are a few cards where you will like it's attached to an enemy type that's common enough that you will come across.
I don't know. When I was playing the game, I got a surprising distance into the game before I got any of them, and then it turned out that I had missed several that drop at a fairly reasonable rate from fairly early enemies. I just got unlucky.
I'm talking comparatively, because we haven't really addressed the other problem that Circle of the Moon has.
Oh, and that one other thing, and this is not unique to this game because they didn't really start doing it properly until I think Aria of Sorrow. This game doesn't really have much in the way of information on enemies you've beaten, which is very useful in games where random drops are important, and it comes up a lot in later ones, because
they had it in Harmony of Dissonance. It's just in Harmony of Dissonance, it's less important.
Yeah, but in this game, it would be super useful if you could see, oh, hey, you killed a bomber skeleton. It has a drop of a potion, and also, oh, hey, what's this fancy 3-star thing?
But even then, even in the later Egavanias, it's a bit of a problem because they don't tell you what drops from an enemy until it drops.
Yeah, but they tell you how many drops an enemy has.
Right. I'm just saying that's still of limited value compared to what was added in the Castlevania Advanced Collection, which is a full-on... Okay, first of all, they've added on a full-on encyclopedia for all the entries, so you will be able to look up, which monster has, say, the Jupiter card, or the Thunderbird card, what have you. But also, there's there's also a hint system. If you whip a enemy that has a card, it will let you know it has a card. Not necessarily which card, but it'll inform you it has a card.
And that is a very valuable thing to know that the original game did not tell you.
Yeah, because that's probably neck and neck for the biggest problem with Circle of the Moon. Really, that and the just terrible drop rate.
Yeah.
But it's also it doesn't it doesn't tell you what drops from what, and that's really important in Circle of the Moon because everything drops outside of movement upgrades and say one the best armor in the game, which you get after defeating the arena.
Yeah, all the items, not obviously health and magic upgrades are static, usually in hidden rooms or out of the way things.
Yeah. And
so,
I will absolutely agree that Circle of the Moon has problems. Deeper problems than what reviews at the time I think were not so much willing, but
Reviews at the time were really fixated on the one particular problem of this, which is being a very early Game Boy Advance title. It was developed on hardware that did not properly convey just how dark the Game Boy Advance screen is. Thankfully, that's not a problem anymore because you can play it on other things.
yeah, but
And unfortunately, the next game in the series literally overcorrected for that.
it is also worth noting that Circle of the Moon is one of the highest regarded like Castlevania titles in general. Like it, in terms of its Metacritic score, it's tied with Aria of Sorrow. Like it's like 91, I want to say. Like so, really high up there. But it's also it's not
It's also-
nearly as highly regarded as it was back in the Game Boy Advance's heyday.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sorry.
okay. I've been trying to think about why that might have been. And yeah, some of the stuff that we've already talked about certainly answers some of the question, but I think the main reason why this game's kind of faded in comparison to its contemporaries is Aria of Sorrow. The Sorrow games, the Sorrow duology.
Yeah, those are fairly gold standard for Metroidvanias. I think everyone agrees on.
I'm going to be honest, I forgot there were other Castlevania GBA games aside from the Aria games.
Well, no. Just
one of them. Aria or
Aria Sorrow.
The second Soma game was on the DS.
Yes, Dawn of Sorrow was the.
It's still one of those. I forgot that like Circle of the Moon and stuff even existed because it was mostly taken over by the Aria games
once they were out.
Yeah,
Sorrow games. But it's not just it's not just that you could argue just in general Aria of Sorrow is a better game. It's because I think Aria of Sorrow did the main gimmick of Circle of the Moon here a whole lot better.
The dual setup system gives you a really interesting suite of abilities that you can compare to each other, but it's much more satisfying to just be able to get an ability off every enemy in the game.
Right. It's it's a shockingly elegant system that the Sorrow games have, because it does retain the depth that you get with DSS, but it tampers down on the tedium because
especially in Aria.
Yeah, I'm not saying
there are reasons to grind for 9 of most of the souls, and that can get tedious.
I'm not saying it eliminates the tedium,
yeah,
but it's far less tedious than trying to farm a card that has anywhere from 5% to 1% of a drop rate.
Yep.
Drop
rates are not high for a game where you're relying on drops for everything.
Also, something batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's that? You got your drop? Oh shit! Your batteries just died. Sucks to be you.
Oh, that's another complaint that was probably more salient on the actual GBA hardware than it is, with the Advanced Collection here.
Because these games still use a checkpoint system that
a save room system,
yeah, save room, yes.
Yeah, this one uses just the save room system, because when we get to Harmony of Dissonance, that has quick saves in it. Like, this game doesn't have quick saves. And also, it doesn't have save rooms right near the boss. Right. It's actually a bit of a jaunt. So, you know what that means?
That's one of those, things they learned real fast in quality of life things. I think even I think even friggin' Symphony of the Night did a better job, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can absolutely get the shit kicked out of you by a boss, win, and then die on the way by a trash mob because you've got no health back. You've got no health, which is once again, I recommend getting the health regen card. I forget the combination name, but that is such a literal lifesaver because it really is the best way to regenerate health in the game.
So yeah, if it's all right, I would like to at some point get into what my actual gripes with this game are, because actually the stuff that I've said so far is only about half of it.
All right, but before you do that, I'm going to get into why I think this is a better game than Harmony of Dissonance. And that is, for all of its faults, for all of its problems, for all of its artificial difficulty, it's still got a personality. It's still got actual game design behind it, as opposed to the land of bland that is Harmony of Dissonance. Like, Harmony of Dissonance is just such a dull, gray blob of a game. Like, there is a certain level of quality, even in the worst Castlevania. But that game, like, it literally has 18 bosses, and I could not remember. I could barely remember any of them.
Some of them were a little. It did have some neat set pieces, like the being chased by the giant statue that you then have to fight later. The thing where there's a boss at one point that you basically can't defeat, but you have to knock it backwards until it goes into some gears, and then because it's like a suit of armor type boss, it spits out like some of the best armor in the game at you. I think this is the one. Harmony of Distance is the one where you have to hit a switch to do an elevator scene, and when like the water rises, and then when it's revealed when you get to the top, it's revealed that the thing that happened was like juicing the fluids out of some kind of giant guy.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't have set pieces. I'm saying, okay, not only the boss is unmemorable and also lazy for the most part, because they just took regular enemy, make big, and called it a day. Here's the thing, like, if you're gonna do that,
there are about 5 of those.
Like, way too many. It's also that they flat out recycle a boss. Like, there's a boss called the Minotaur level 2. Like, yeah, it's like they really needed to cut down, but I suppose they couldn't because they did the whole 2 castle thing, only they did it worse than Symphony of the Night. Because
I thought that was an interesting twist, but mechanically there's not a whole lot to it. The main thing is that when you first unlock the fast travel system, it's swapping every time you do it. It's swapping you between castles, and you don't realize that for a bit. You're wondering, like, oh, why is the map colored in 2 different colors or something? And then you eventually get back to an area you already been to in the other castle. And it's like, oh, that's what was going on.
Yeah, that's not really the big problem, though. It's because it's basically 2 of the same thing. Like, say what you will about the inverted castle in Symphony of the Night, at least that was different. At least they did something to make that stand out, independent of the original castle. Castle A and Castle B in Harmony of Dissonance, they are 2 minor variations of the same template.
Yeah, they have different color schemes and different enemy arrangements, but otherwise there are a few doors that are in. I mean, there's a decent number of doors that are in one, but not the other. But that's about it.
Yeah, I will flat out say that is bad game design right there. You just made it all the same, and it all blends together. Like, I don't know if you could have rotated maybe 90 degrees or something. Like, there had to have been something you could have done to freshen up things with the second castle, other than just changing the color a little. Ugh.
Mm.
Anyway, okay. So in the interest of equal time, you may proceed, Galix, with your problems with the Circle of the Moon.
So the first thing about this game is it just feels wrong to me. It doesn't feel good. The whip timing feels different than every other game that I've played, that Castlevania that I've played that has the whip. The circle shield, the circle thing you do when you hold the whip, I recognize that it can be useful for the purpose of blocking small projectiles, but it's not its power is too low for most other purposes.
Something like 10% of your swing hit or something like that.
Yeah, so it really can't defeat much in the way of enemies, except for like individual worms that don't even count and come off of a mass of worms.
Mm-hmm.
The traversal upgrades you get, a lot of them feel awkward. Like you get a dash that you need to make you jump a little bit further, and it's done by double tapping. There's no backdash. That's the only thing you get. You get a shoulder slam that moves certain blocks that feels bad to do. And frankly, too many of the traversal ends. There are also some quote unquote traversal upgrades that are just like, oh hey, it's a switch that destroyed all of one kind of statue. And I think there's 2 of those. And they're like, you get the block slamming shoulder tackle, and then later you get like the boulder slamming shoulder tackle. They're just, the traversal abilities are, in addition to being awkward, they're not original feeling, like, or they're not even classic. They're just like boring and redundant. Those are the main things that aren't covered by the whole random drops issue.
Mm.
Okay. Are you? Have you run through your list?
That's the main stuff that we didn't get to with the random drops and the DSS thing. Oh, and another thing that bugs me a little bit, this game has, I think, out of all of them, the most different ways to play the game based after you beat it. You get the rival mode, which is fairly standard at this point, even at this point.
No, you don't. Like,
there's a Maxim mode.
No, there isn't.
There isn't?
No, like this game does that thing differently than all the Egamanias. You don't get a different character; you get different builds.
No, Maxim mode is in the next one. You're right. There is no Hue mode. Okay, yeah, it's you still get like, there are like 4 different alternate modes that are just like, one of them you get all the magic things and you're good at magic but your weapon sucks. One of them you get no magic but you're super strong. One of them you only get one of them you're really good at sub weapons, and one of them you have really high luck
mode.
Yeah.
Thief mode and shooter mode.
Right. So, yeah, I couldn't remember. And you do these by starting your game with a certain name, but you also you unlock them in, or I forget what order, but it's in order, and you have
magician, fighter, thief, shooter, I believe.
Like one of those, I thought thief was last, but yeah, one of those.
Thief could be last. I never got that far into the mode.
Yeah, because it makes you have to play the game 4 times to unlock it.
Yes, and I did not feel like playing Circle of the Moon 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what. Unfortunately, the problem is, since it's it's a different build, it changes the way you play in the particulars. It's in the nuance of things, but it's not like Maxim mode. It's not like Julius mode. It's not like Richter mode where things change radically.
Uh-huh.
You're still playing the same character, just with a different stat focus.
Yeah. Okay. If it's 4, I think it's tied with freaking Harmony of Dissonance, which also has 4 alternate modes, if I remember correctly.
Like, was that Harmony? I think that might have been Donna Sorrow.
No, Harmony of Dissonance has Sisters mode, Richter and Maria mode, and no, it might
right.
only have 3, and Old Axe Armor mode.
Yeah, I think that it only had 3.
So this might still be the most, but they're just just stat alterations. Like the magician mode, you get all of the magic cards to start with, and you have more magic, and your magic is more powerful. And frankly, thief mode I would have probably preferred to start with because it makes you get more drops. But I think it also makes your other stats suck. So yeah, that is kind of, that's the way that the game gives you more to do once you've beaten it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once again, like some of this can be, like that can be excused by the fact that not just only it was a different team, it's the Igavania formula hadn't been quite established yet.
I'll agree that they hadn't been a format, but they could have taken a few more notes from Symphony of the Night.
I mean, I can also understand why they didn't want to do that, because they were their own team with their own ideas. Like, and honestly, like, Iga's big problems with Circle of the Moon weren't even mechanically related outside of obviously
no, it just
the
doesn't
Dark
work
Queen.
with his continuity.
No, no. I think like they tried to tie it in with Bloodlines, but it just didn't take.
Yeah, because Iga has some very specific things about which characters from the novel Dracula are related to which characters through how many generations and yada yada.
Yeah. But I suppose that's all water under the bridge now, given, I mean, I guess Igavania is still the canon of Castlevania, considering that's what the Netflix series are drawing off of.
I think most of the, well, no, one of those is from an Iga game, but yeah. Some of that stuff was from before he was really certainly before he was in charge. But yeah, a lot of it is drawing from stuff that was what he wanted.
Okay. The original Castlevania series was not drawing off of Castlevania 3. It's drawing off of Curse of Darkness, like primarily, which is an Iga game, probably the forgotten Iga Castlevania game. But I
mean, it was both, I think.
All I know is somebody wake me up when we get to the Battle of 1999. I mean, wait, what?
Probably. Anyway, as far as we could continue on this conversation, but we should probably wrap up given the time. So yeah, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Coming up on the week ahead, there's a new episode of Moonhawk Studios Presents happening in a little while, let's say. Like, I'm assuming 15 minutes, but we don't have a guest this week, so Mac might be a little late. Like, all depends on his circumstances. Anyway, on Friday, July 18th, we'll be welcoming Fernando Dominguez Sammartino of Lemon Chili Games. We will be talking about a whole bunch of games, but most recently, like the current project is Super Farming Boy. So look forward to that on Friday. And coming up on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews of Necrosmith 2, Warhammer 40,000 Speed Freaks, impressions of X Zodiac, and back to reviews with The House of Da Vinci 3. Yeah, finally finishing off this trilogy. So, until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.